I'll introduce us for those that don't know Haley and I. I'm Pastor Elaine, and this is Pastor Haley. And I just think if we could just take a moment and close our eyes and just sense the presence of God and just rest for a moment. Thank you, Father. Thank you, youth. One more time, tremendous job. You guys did awesome. As I said, I am Pastor Elaine, and some of my duties around here is I'm in charge of the children's ministry and work with some incredible, gifted, and loving people in doing that. I also help Haley out with young adults and with youth ministry. I am overseeing the women's ministry, and then I also just do administrative stuff behind the scenes that just kind of keep things going and flowing and working around here. And Haley is even more busy. She is in charge of the youth group and has an awesome time with these young people. And she works with young adults. She also helps out with children's ministry, because I wouldn't let her go. And she oversees our media, which includes the website, the app, our social media, and kind of anything that has to do with that I don't understand.
Yep.
So I'm glad she does it. We brought Haley into our church through marriage about 7 years ago when she married Nathan. And so it has been such a gift to have her with us. And she started working with the children's ministry pretty much right away. And her and I have just clicked and have done so many things together in ministry and have seen some awesome things happen, have seen some train wrecks happen, but we're still here, we're still working. So Haley, I just want to start out with asking you, what was your journey in coming to be a youth pastor at Abundant Life?
Sure. So if I go way back, my dream was always to be a teacher, and so that was kind of the only thing I ever saw myself doing, and that's what I pursued. When I was a senior in high school, we had to do like a capstone project, and so we were kind of told, don't do your project on what you know you're going to go to school for. Like, this is your chance to try something new. Think, like, dream big. And I was like, man, if I wasn't a teacher, if I could do anything, it would be a youth pastor. That'll never happen, but that would be cool. So that's what I did my whole senior project on. I shadowed youth pastors and learned all about the ministry and started a ministry at my school. And so that seed has been in me for a really long time. So I was a teacher. I was a middle school teacher for 6 years and loved it. I have a heart for youth, especially middle school, high school age. And then there was kind of an opportunity here to step a little bit away from children and a little bit more towards youth. And I was like, man, that's where I want to be. So last year, I started working with the youth as the youth director, and I couldn't get enough of it. So when the opportunity came to walk away from the classroom and be here full time, it was meant to be. So this has been my first year full on staff, and it's been awesome.
It's quite a step of faith,
yeah,
to leave a secure job with good benefits, and you picked a good time to leave teaching, I must say, probably.
I regret nothing.
Yes. And so as you look at our youth group, we have had some incredible youth pastors over the year. One of the things our youth group has lacked has been continuity, as our youth directors haven't been able to stay for a period of time, but we see that you will be here quite some time, God willing.
Yep.
So if you would share with us kind of what is your vision for our youth group, what would you like to see?
Sure. So I really like that the youth kind of got a lot of input on their name when we rebranded last year, and they chose the name Sozo, which if you have been around here, you've heard Joe talk about what Sozo means, and it's the word for salvation. But it goes even more than that. It's not just coming into a relationship with Christ, but salvation that continues. It's being saved from harm. It's being healed, being made whole. There's always more. There's always more sozo, more salvation. And so such a beautiful picture of what our youth ministry is meant to be, to introduce kids to Christ, but then to not stop there, to develop this relationship that is deep, that's rooted, they know who they are in Christ, and then from that, they can flourish. They can have the confidence to go out into the world and make a difference. They can tell others about Christ. They can be world changers because of the salvation that they know that they have. So
Yeah.
that's what I see for us.
So the youth group that we have now would be a part of what we would call Gen Z.
Yep.
You're a millennial.
Yes.
Right. And so as you look at the generations, there has been some really big changes
Yeah.
in generations, and especially in Gen Z.
Yeah.
They have gone through some things that other generations haven't had to at that age, at
Yep.
such an age when so much is changing already, and then the world erupts and goes crazy on you. And so as we look at Gen Z, I think one of the things important for us to remember is, like people my age and even your age, going to school is not the same
No, it's not.
as what it was. I remember one time going to pick up my son from school, and he was probably in about 5th grade, and God telling me, I need you to put down everything that you're thinking about. Your son has just been to war, and that at school can be really hard. And you need to relate to where they're at and be available for him.
Yep.
And so I think that's what we're looking forward to, is having a ministry where we can do that with these awesome young people and be available to them.
Yeah.
So as you think about Gen Z, I know you've been around them a lot through teaching, you've done research.
Yep.
What are we seeing are the characteristics of that generation?
Sure. So Gen Z is what some experts are calling screenagers, because not only are they being raised totally with screens, but they're being raised by parents who are on screens, which is something that we haven't seen in generations before. And so that's where a lot of their life is spent, is behind that screen. Some things that experts have noticed that is different in Gen Z than previous generations is how they prioritize the things that influence their identity. And so what Gen Z has said influences their identity the most is success. They are hard workers, they're extremely driven, and they want success academically, personally, and part of why they feel that way is because they want to create a stable future for themselves, because they're seeing a lot of instability around them. And so they're very success-driven. And this is the first generation to not say that family is the number one indicator of their identity. So this is a shift that experts are saying is huge. In fact, Gen Z doesn't even put it second. They put their hobbies and interests second, and family is third. They also are very not trusting of institutions. They don't trust the government. They don't trust the media. They don't trust the medical field, and we can't really blame them with all the things that have been changing, with things that have been said were true and ended up not being true. They're just seeing that big institutions don't care about them personally. We're also seeing that they feel that same way towards churches. They're having a hard time believing that a big program, a church, could care about them individually. So they're slow to trust institutions, but they value relationships higher than a lot of generations before. One-on-one, they want to know that you care about them, and they are willing to trust you. They're one of the most trusting generations when it comes to cross-generational relationships. They want relationships with older people. They want to hear how you handled things when you were their age. They know that there's wisdom in hearing from people who have gone through things before them. But they're hard workers. They're entrepreneurs. They seek answers. They want to know what's true. They don't want to just believe someone on stage who told them that something is true. They want to search it out for themselves. So those are some of the defining characteristics of this generation that I see as a ton of potential, a lot of hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we're seeing in this generation is the results or the consequences of our society choosing to leave God's way.
Yep.
And the deconstruction of the family and how that is really impacting. It impacted your generation,
Yep.
And it's impacting this generation. And that can be very sad.
Yep.
And Haley has some statistics in your bulletin you can look at for surveys that have been done with the loneliness
Yes.
and the depression and the thoughts of suicide that is so much in this generation because they don't have that security. There is no hope.
Yep.
If all I'm relying on is me to be successful, that's kind of a scary place to be.
And a lonely place to be.
And a lonely place to be. But like you said, the potential, the excitement is to be able to reach into that need and allow God to use us to help fill that with Him.
Yep.
When our leadership years ago came up with the vision for our church, it's find family, find Jesus, find grace. And we got a little bit of flack because we had family first and not Jesus. But a lot of times you have to have that family. It's kind of like what you're saying. You need to have a relationship with someone that you trust and knows that they care about you before you're going to listen to them.
Yep.
And if we have the opportunity to start building relationships with people and becoming family, then we can share the love of Christ that we have in us and the hope that we have
Right.
there. So I think that's exciting. I know one of the things you talked to me about was, and something I had not heard of, was deconstruction.
Yeah.
And that's something that's been going on in the generation. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, and so that's kind of a buzzword for a lot of people my age, and now we're kind of seeing it trickle down. This idea of deconstruction is to kind of lay out everything that you've been told, usually pertaining to spiritually, and hold each piece up to the light. Say, is this true? Is this true? The problem with that is that a lot of people my age and Gen Z believe in what was the word, relative morality, that right and wrong or morality can change based on situations or based on person. And so now that they've got everything they believe laid out, but nothing solid to compare it against, and it usually ends in, the goal would be to end in reconstruction, to not just believe what you've been told, not just take on your parents' beliefs as your own, but to really figure out what you believe, but with nothing, with no absolute truth. It usually just ends up in believing in nothing. We see that Gen Z is the largest generation to consider themselves nuns, meaning that they don't hold to any beliefs. They don't even want to call it being atheist or being agnostic, because that in itself is a label. They just
Don't want labels.
don't want labels. And they're not afraid to kind of pick and choose different practices from different religions. They see no problem with that. Maybe take some Eastern meditation and maybe take some, prayer and kind of create their own. But we're seeing it's not effective. It's not changing their mental health.
Well, there's a way that works,
Yep.
and there's just one way that works. And so when you're trying to construct it on your own,
Yep.
it's just not going to.
Yeah.
So when you talk about nuns, does that mean that this generation is just not interested in spiritual things?
No, this generation is more spiritual than really any other generation, because they're searching so much. A lot of generations have just been like, well, I'll figure out what I believe when I'm older. But with everything going on, they want something to believe in. And so they are actively searching and researching, getting their information from a lot of different sources, a lot of not reliable sources. They don't know where to go, but they know there's got to be something more. So what an awesome spot for them to be in, to be open to hearing what's true. They just need someone to come alongside them and show them what's true, what's going to really change their life.
So when you look at the characteristics of Gen Z, how does that, I mean, you can look at it negative, or like you said, you can look at it as very positive. They are very spiritual. They are looking for answers. They do want relationships. And so when you look at that, it's really exciting because God doesn't want to just have an institution.
Yep.
He wants a personal, intimate relationship with each of us. And so I think they're really searching for that.
Yep.
And so how can we as a church and as a youth ministry tie in with those characteristics we're seeing, and how does that match up with our vision?
Right. Everything we do, especially in youth ministry, has to start with relationship. And that's going to look different. It's going to be less one person up front teaching and everyone listening. It's going to be a lot more of building relationships, consistent relationships, having the same adults there to talk to you, to care about you. It's got to go beyond Wednesday night or Sunday morning. It's got to be a relationship that's every day, caring about each other. And it's just got to be a lot of doing life together. We started an after-school program just one night a week to really kind of try some of these things out. And it's doing homework together and grabbing a snack and asking how our days were, playing games and building that trust. And so I think we're going to need a lot more adults, because in order to build those meaningful relationships, you've got to have those small groups. It's going to be different, and people might not get it right away. But this is the picture of what Jesus did. He came and built relationships.
And I think the fun part about it, like with us on the Wednesday nights, is we benefit. We love getting to know you guys. You're amazing. And it is so much fun. And I think the people that are involved are going to be so blessed.
Yep.
Because there's so much life and so much energy and so much curiosity and wisdom
Yep.
that our young people have. We have a foundation of young people that is phenomenal.
Yep.
That as we're building this ministry, we got an incredible foundation that we're going to be working off of.
Yes.
You know, one of the things Haley had talked about was we've kind of lost right and wrong in our society. When I was growing up, there was right, there was wrong. Everybody pretty much agreed what that was. Whether you did right or wrong was another story. And they didn't give you any help to know how to do right or wrong. But we're really not interested in that.
No.
And, you know, the one thing that we have had God kind of speak to us is what brings life and what brings death. And that's what we're wanting to teach our young people. Not rules, not right and wrong, but you can choose to do this, but if you do, is that going to bring life to you, or is that going to bring death? And it's not necessarily a physical death. It could be to a relationship.
Yep.
It could be to a dream you have. It could be to whatever. And I think it's the same for all of us, that in decisions that we're making, is this lining up with God's way? Because if it is, then that's going to bring life. And it might not be immediate. It might be more down the road and feel like death sometimes when we have to surrender what it is we're wanting.
Yeah.
Or we can choose short-term what might please us. I'm going to be mad at you. I'm going to hold a grudge. Well, that's not going to bring life.
Right.
I can choose that. God will still love me, but it's going to bring death to me. And so trying to learn to teach ourselves, probably first, and then the young people, how do you make those decisions? How do you make those life choices to really have the abundant life that God has called us to?
Right.
So what do you see we are needing for our church family and our youth in order to fulfill this vision that God's given you?
I think we're going to need more space. We're about maxed out in our youth room, and we're so blessed. Our youth group is so young. I think some of our oldest are freshmen, and so not only do we have a good foundation of awesome youth, but they're sticking with us for a few years. We also have great kids from downstairs that are going to be coming up. And as we build this relational ministry, they're going to start bringing their friends.
Because we're really cool. right?
Obviously. Good answer.
They nod because they're polite.
Yeah, they are polite. They see people in their lives who are searching, and they will know where to bring them for answers. And so we're gonna max out our space really soon. And it was last year about this time, God gave a few of us a vision to add on or to build a facility just for our youth.
Yeah.
And to have a safe place for this ministry to springboard. So that's where we're at. That's what we're praying about.
It's been kind of fun because as Haley and I have prayed about this and thought about it for probably a little over a year, we both came up with the same name at different times. Because I told her, I think God gave me the name. And so I tell her, and she's like, well, I already knew that.
Like, I had that sketch in
why
the book
didn't
a year
you
ago.
tell me that? But we just believe it'll be Sozo House. It'll be a house that you can find safety. It's a house that you can find healing. And you can find that in your bulletin. There's sermon notes, and then on the back, we have kind of the purpose of Sozo House. It just has down there what we're dreaming of, what we're hoping this ministry will be for young people and what we can provide, not only for the young people in our church, they're obviously our focus, but also our community. You know, we're really hoping that as a church, you'll get on board with us by catching the vision of the importance of youth, the incredible potential in youth, and just maybe see the hurting that is there, that whether it's young people you have in your home, young people that you know. If you go to a store and you see a young people, if you look closely in their eyes, you can just see the pain that is there. And so what we want is for you to get a vision of seeing them healed and them whole and having a place where they can grow up and find good answers, find good, strong relationships that are going to help them build a solid foundation for life. And so we really hope that you'll start to see the youth in our community sozoed. And then we're also hoping that you will speak life with us, that as you plan a building project, as you start to move into something new, when you start moving into expansion, that can be kind of scary. And even you and I, we see all the reasons why this won't work. Yep. But we're refusing to look at that. Instead, we're speaking life, because this isn't your vision, it's not my vision. We really believe this is God's vision for our church and for our community. And so with that, we're just trusting him to do it.
Yep.
And like you had said, he already sees it done.
Yep. So we're just choosing to already see it done.
Yeah.
Speak as though it's done. God's already given it to us. We're just waiting to see it
out.
come to
We're
pass.
just going to walk it out. And then finally, we really hope that you'll just be who God has created you to be. That as a church family, each one of us has a role to play. In order for a family to really function well, everyone kind of needs to do their part.
Yep.
And so just be who God made you to be. You find out the gifts he has given you. Step out and try something new that's maybe a little scary.
Yep.
Or maybe intimidating, but there are so many wonderful people on our staff that would be willing to come alongside you to help you figure out, what is my gifting? Where can I get plugged in? Or maybe you have it on your heart. Wow, I just hit my mic and it didn't. Good job, Jill. Sorry. But that we would love to help you find out, what is it you want to do? And you have it on your heart. This is what I want to do. How do I get started? We would love to get to do that with you. So is there anything else you can think of that you were wanting to share and we skipped over?
I don't think so.
Nailed it?
Nailed it.
Awesome.